And good morning, everyone. Today on Nurturing Big Ideas, we have Mia Voss. I'm Yvonne DiVita, and our conversation today is going to just focus on life, on women, on the things that we women do to reinvent ourselves, to learn and grow and move on with our lives. And I want you to know that Mia Voss is a brand ambassador. And we'll let her kind of talk about what that is, because it's not something that many of you will be familiar with. It is something that is very up and coming today, but it's also Mia, it's a really complicated, kind of hard thing to do. And I'm just amazed and inspired that you have done this. Tell us more about being a brand ambassador.
Sure. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited about this new venture you got going on, your new iteration.
Yeah. You know me. I never stop.
We are separated at birth as far as that's concerned, for sure.
Indeed.
And definitely. So the brand ambassador piece, it's a fairly new iteration pivot for me. When I turned 50 in 2015, I wanted to start traveling. And, I'd had this show, which is how I met you. I was doing a whole storytelling show over on Google+. Rest in peace. And then, realized that all these connections that I had made over the years with interviewing folks, that that could turn into something where, because of my love of talking about things I love, I love being a cheerleader for businesses that I love, ideas, any kind of community-based things. So yeah, I started doing some traveling, and then turned into more of a spokesperson, brand ambassador, and saying, especially for women over 50, the power, the female buying power, that's one of my favorite hashtags, is so unique, so underserved, and really not even addressed, that the fact that women make 85% if not more of the overall buying decisions in a household, whether that's their finances or not. We are the ones doing the legwork and making the decisions. And it's not only for us, but for our families. So I love that idea as a brand ambassador to say, this is what the buying power looks like. And,
let's just put this out there. Who buys their husband's underwear? He doesn't go out and buy it.
Nope.
His wife.
Well, I work with
kids want something.
Yeah.
We have this. I used to point
out the pets. What are you going to buy? Who's buying for the pets? Who's buying for the
pet brands back in the blog post days that, you're marketing to the people. You keep bringing all these wonderful things for the pets and we all love it. But what did you bring for me, the person that has to go in the store with her wallet, right. and the whole buying power. I used to tell people all the time that, women not only make those decisions, the men like that we make those decisions because they don't like shopping.
Right.
And the big thing that I would point out to people is, at the end of the football game, the winning team goes on camera. And what does the quarterback say? Hi, Mom.
That's right.
Right. Buying power.
It totally is. And it's so funny you mentioned that about the pets. So my rescue Frenchie Gidget has an Instagram account, and somebody auto DM'd her, and Gidget was a little feisty. It was like, you do realize I'm a dog, right? This whole auto DM thing, which, kind of cracks me up, but it's very true. That's one of the things that I'm driven in, and it's evolved even more so in the last 4 years, is to give that voice to women. I work with a lot of car companies as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's fun, because what I do is I weave story in when I do the test drives of the cars. Last week, my cousins were in town, and we all drove up to the Hot Sulphur Springs up in Colorado, and I put all the kids into this GMC Acadia, and so that was the whole experience of us driving up over Berthoud Pass, and like, what's it like in the back seat? How's everybody fitting? So building that story and the actual thing of not just how it looks, or it's got this, the male cachet to it, but the female experience.
Yeah, it's so important that you say story. And I want people to understand that this is your brand ambassadorship is also for women. You're our brand ambassador in many ways. And the reality is that the job or the career or the move or the pivot, it's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's never about you. It's never about me. It's about all the people out there beyond the camera, wherever they are, and
Yeah.
how you build that story. So I really, when I watch you, I love it because you're so natural. You remind me of my daughter Chloe.
Oh, I love
Natural.
her.
And I think, part of being natural is because you've reinvented yourself enough that you're now, I know who I am.
Mm-hmm. Unapologetic too.
There you go.
It's and I think when you're saying that too, of being inspiring to people to give them permission to make that pivot. And I'm old enough to remember the days, my first job was in commercial insurance. I became an insurance agent at 18.
Wow.
I didn't go to college right away. In fact, I didn't finish college. I started off with an insurance career. And, back then, this was the early 80s. And even throughout the 80s, it was frowned upon to have all these different changes. And, you get that job. I mean, my dad worked for the Illinois Water Company for like 45 years, right? I mean, that's what he did. He had side jobs as well, but that's, so back in the day. And then I know for yourself as well, and for me with that downturn in 2008, 2009, I had to completely reinvent. And was a lot of, I think that was the refreshing thing about that downturn, is that it really forced people to do what they love. You couldn't, a lot of times you just lost your job, but I think it took that stigma off for a lot of people to say, oh, you can only do this, or you started off in this is what your degree was in. You have to stick with that. I think that downturn gave a lot of freedom to folks to say, all right, it's every man or woman for themselves. You got to figure out what you're going to do. And if you're going to make money, you may as well like what you're doing. And when I added in that, when you're asking about quotes, live large, have fun, that's one of my credos. When I added in the fun element to it, it changed a lot for me.
It did back in that specific time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that after I got divorced, I don't even remember how long ago, it was a long time ago. I had kids.
Pre-Tom time.
And interestingly, I had to go out to work after being home for 15 years. And that was hard. It was really hard because the experience I had, the training I had as a veterinary technician, technologist, did not serve me well because I didn't have the certificate. They didn't give them when I studied it. You didn't get it.
Wow.
Now you had to have one. But in the end, I probably worked at 3 or 4 different jobs. And my son at the time, who was in high school, said, Mom, why don't you just stay at a job? Why do you keep doing that? And I said,
wow,
because I'm not going to work somewhere that I'm not appreciated and I'm not happy.
Sure.
And that's what it's about, isn't it?
Sure.
And behind all of that, Mia, and behind what you were doing is, so I'm doing something I enjoy. I did get a job as a office manager, which I liked a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
But behind all that, in the back of my head, it was like, I want to write a book. I want to write a book. And so then I wrote a book, and the book led to blogging, and blogging led to blog pause, and all.
What a journey! I mean, and to point out for everyone watching too, we're talking about a time frame. We're not talking now when this is, even now it can be difficult to break the system, buck the system, and break the patriarchy. But I mean, talk about back then. That had to be, super unusual time as well.
Because
right?
Why? I say to myself, why are young women still having the same issues and stumbles? Yeah. And why are the potholes still there? You and I don't want that. You and I want people to get around those potholes because they're all going to be there. Because if it isn't someone holding you back for your gender, it's someone holding you back because you're in their way. It doesn't matter. I think, Mia, when I see what you've accomplished and I watch where you're going, the inspiration for me in what you're doing and how you're doing it is that you make it look easy, but 2, I think people, women especially of any age, need to understand that there's a level of Yes, you have to have passion. Yes, this is something you really want to do, but you
Hmm.
also learn as you go. You cannot say, I'm going to go and study this at school, and then I'm going to go do it. Not today. Today you go out and you just do it, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
It is. And so just to, and to be clear on that too, there's a difference between, yeah, the go as you go, and then the fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
That there's a big distinction on that. I want to make a quick point that what I find encouraging about millennial women, but as opposed to the what are we?
I'm a
Gen X.
baby boomer. You're right on the edge.
I am on the cusp. Was born in '65, so I'm the first year of Gen X. I know I always get that confused. What I love that's really refreshing, and they take a lot of crap for it, but I love that millennial women especially are so much less unapologetic, and they question things a lot more than women our age. Now, other people may find that to be entitlement, but I'm looking at the positive side of it. I've seen a lot of women, they're just like, no, what's that about? Right? They don't take the status quo as easily as what our generation did, which was definitely shut up, sit down, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I was working in the corporate world, I was again, commercial insurance. And then I moved to New York City, and it was in the super corporate world. Like this was how archaic our time was. I was actually working at MasterCard, because I had a lot of history I have some interesting iterations for sure, pivots. But I worked at like, what did I work? 57th and 8th. And I worked in this really like the 43rd floor of this high rise. And, we couldn't wear pants. Like you always had to wear a skirt. You always had to wear pantyhose, right? It was at that, like I was sitting outside the executive offices, it was like working girl back in the day. It's so funny. So I remember those times too, when there was definitely just the set system. There was very few women in any kind of corporate thing. So I do find it refreshing that, and I really want to encourage women out there. Boy, all kinds of things are going on for me. So busy over here. But
Yeah, don't be apologetic. I agree. If I had been in that office after about maybe 3 weeks, I would have started wearing pants. And
I will tell you, I definitely, bucked the system back in the day for sure. But it's interesting. I do feel like, for me, so part of my story too, and you may remember, is I have a building inspection business.
Mm-hmm.
So that I started in 2001. And I was working in the architecture world, and learned, I was literally like an office manager in an architecture field. I was so fascinated by architecture, and I was fortunate enough to work for Oz Architecture here in Denver. They had a lot of women that were in fields of they were pretty hot. They were architects, they were engineers. So it was a really balanced place. It was pretty cool. And this was 20 years ago. And, I learned to read drawing sets. I was helping them out with submissions and so forth. And so then they started bringing me on job sites to help them do punch work. And so super accidental. A lot of this stuff is accidental. And that's what I want to encourage people to of the ability to just to say, hey, I want to explore photography. I want to explore dog walking. I want to explore graphic arts. Maybe that's not what you were trained in.
Mm-hmm.
But, if anything that's going on with the world right now, of all the hoo-ha of kids parents paying to get them into schools and so forth, it's really leveled the playing field of like, okay, who's what, right? If that's your passion. But, for me, that was a really cool thing that I fell into, is this business of going on job sites and coming up with lists of things for the construction guys to fix. Talk about an adversarial job. Let's face it, I get paid to go on a job site, put on a hard hat, and boss men around.
Awesome. But you know what? I think one of the things we've talked about other times is how you do fall into these things often, but being able to, I think, recognize something. Oprah likes to say, if whatever's happening today, what can you learn from it? It's not,
right.
Look at it as a failure or a setback or whatever it is. But, beyond learning from it, it's taking the time to recognize, hey, this isn't what I planned to do, or like you didn't go to school for this.
Right.
It looks really interesting.
It looks really interesting. Exactly. Like that curiosity of and not be discouraged. And I think, again, this is the beauty of our time and age right now, is that the curiosity is encouraged now. Women are bucking the system and starting businesses, and we're encouraging one another. And I want to encourage everybody to go and watch your International Women's Day video. It was so inspiring. I watched it again this morning. We're coming up on the tail end of, the International Women's Month. And, I really want to encourage people to watch that, because you do talk a lot about that of getting out there and doing what you love. And here's another thing. I want to bring this up real quick, because after I watched your video, and then I was going to post about International Women's Day, which was March 8th. And I happened to go look up what the theme was, or what the background was for this Women's Day thing. And here's what I love. The theme for this year is #balance for better. It's think equal, build smart, innovate for change. Better the balance, better the world, which I thought was amazing, because in my world of being on an all male job site, I spent, had that business for now 18 years. And then also being as part of the female buying power. I love that balance. It's not going to be about just us getting ahead as women. It really is about bringing this balance, pay parity, things like that. I'm going off on a tangent, but I think I really want to encourage people that it is about balance as well.
Well, it's about women valuing themselves.
Women valuing themselves, men stepping up to the plate as well. Not that they're going to be our saviors or anything, but we just want an equal seat at the table. Now, my thing that I say too is that I don't need to be if I'm not invited to that table, I'm going to build my own table.
Sure, absolutely.
I built my old cool kids table.
Absolutely.
Right. So the courage to do that.
I have a favorite saying, Harriet Beecher Stowe. She was one of the early women authors who actually made money from her work. And of course, there's a quote out there that says, President Lincoln met her and said, "So you're the little lady that started the war." Nobody knows if that's true, but I do know that Harriet Beecher Stowe said, "Women are the real architects of society." And if we look at the quote and understand architects of society, so we are the ones that build the world.
We do. I'll tell you, we were talking about this before we started the broadcast, when I saw Temple Grandin a couple weeks ago. So for those of you who aren't familiar with her, she is a high-functioning autistic professor here in Colorado at Colorado State University. She teaches veterinary medicine, and she was the inspiration. Obviously, they did an HBO show on her, but she has been famous for years of coming up with inventions. She came up with the squeezy machine, because autistics can't stand to be touched, but to monitor their own thing. And then she actually invented the first humane slaughter machine. Took a lot of crap for it too. There's a woman out there in this male-dominated industry. So one thing that she just wrote this book about inventors. And what was interesting in reading that, and when you just said that about Harriet Beecher Stowe, that there are so many unsung women that have been architects of so many things throughout the years. But for a long time, people of color couldn't even hold patents.
Oh, right.
So a lot of these ideas came from women. We just couldn't even get our foot in the door until recently. So, now is the time, not to shy away from this at all, but to step up.
I've been reading. I know, me too, because I've been reading a book. I just finished a book about Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, and the book is about her life and how she was doing what we're doing. She was trying to encourage women to value themselves and not be always walking behind the man. And it was fascinating from the perspective of the woman who wrote the book. Did such extensive, there's 50 pages of index in the back. And it's astonishing that some of the same things this Mary Shelley was enduring as a woman in society is still happening today. And I'm just going to say that out there. It is.
It is a reckoning. Oh my gosh. And we're talking 150 years ago for Mary Shelley?
1898,
Yeah. It is astonishing. I'll tell you, the last 2 years have been a grim time. But I will say, now 2.5 years here in the States, but I think it's also been a time for the calling. Okay, no more falling asleep at the wheel. We got to step up. The Me Too, the Time's Up movement, current administration, however you want to put it. It is definitely, we're being shaken to be like, okay, no more messing around. I mean, and to be quite frank, the last year this year's theme, to be a little blunt, is stop dicking around. And it's for a lot of us that women have been paving the way, and it does feel like steps backwards right now. But again, unapologetically, and not asking for permission, because guess what? We've been asking for permission for a long time. Hasn't gotten us anywhere. We're still going to take a lot of crap for it. You may as well do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And support other women too. The supporting of other women is huge. And then asking for, let's face it, we're fortunate. We have strong, powerful, empathetic and sympathetic men in our lives. We need more of that. We need everybody stepping up again about this, better the balance, better the world thing. Ooh, preach it.
Ooh, awesome. So, all right, let's wind up with that, because I think we're all fired up. I think we made our point, and our point is women have value, women have voices, and we all need to be out there architecting society, so to speak.
Love that. How inspiring. I know you sent me that about Mary Shelley, and I love that you're reading things. All we have to do is seriously look back in time as well for inspiration and encouragement.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mia Voss, brand ambassador, so happy to have you on Nurturing Big Ideas today.
Thank you.
I can't wait to get back out to Colorado and see you.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.